Chapter 25. It was a rare icy cold winter day as Connor, Zion, and I sat outside the office on the sidewalk eating our lunches. "Fruit snack, please," I said, and Connor shoved one in my mouth. Mom had insisted I wear my old warm boots today, and though I was glad my toes weren't freezing, it was highly inconvenient. I looked at my friends, both shivering as they took bites of their lunches. "This is ridiculous," I said. "We should be eating in the cafeteria today." They looked up at me in alarm. I had to admit I didn't feel ready to head there myself despite the freezing wind. "We can stay here." They both let out sighs of relief. So Dad told me he's going to try to get the keys in the office as organized as possible, and then he'll let us try out the ones he can't figure out. I bet one of them goes to the desk. "I wonder what's going to be in there," said Zion. I chewed on a fruit snack and gulped. Maybe a murder weapon. Zion shivered. "I hope not." "I hope so," I declared. "Then we can turn it into the police, and then they'll get the fingerprints off it, and then they'll bust the murderer, and then we'll all be in the newspaper, and the murderer will be like, 'I could have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for you nosy kids.'" Zion and Connor both frowned at me. "I don't want to be in the newspaper," said Zion. "Me neither," said Connor. "And I think you've watched too much Scooby-Doo." I scowled. Sometimes those guys were a total buzzkill, and I had watched too much Scooby-Doo. I decided to change the subject. "So, we've had 100 of artists call about the festival. So many that we've had to turn some away that don't fit in with the Stagecoach Pass theme. Seriously, like who wants to buy something called a diaper cake?" No, thank you. I'll stick with chocolate." Zion nodded. "Yeah, that's right." "Disgusting," Connor agreed. "We need to find a band now," I said. "Any ideas?" "Shouldn't be too hard to find one," Connor said. "Just look online." Then he raised an eyebrow at me. "Maybe you should perform, Avon." I looked at him in disbelief. Is that supposed to be a joke? My earmuffs slipped down a little and Connor pushed them back up on my head. "No," he said. "I think it would be cool." Zion looked at me. "What do you play, Avon?" "The guitar," Connor answered for me. "But she won't play for anyone. I think she might be lying about being able to play." I shoved Connor with my foot. "Shut up!" He laughed. "Then play a song at the festival. It would be so cool." "What do you care?" I said. "You're not even coming." Zion's head jerked to Connor. "You're not going?" Connor shrugged. "I don't know. Avon thinks there's going to be like thousands of people there." Zion stared at him. "So?" Connor gaped at Zion. So, that's thousands of people to stand around staring and laughing at me." "They'll be staring at me too," I said, "but I'm still going." "Fine," Connor said. "I'll tell you what. If you play your guitar, I'll come and watch you." My throat suddenly felt dry. "Juice box, please," I whispered, and Connor obliged. I took a swig and cleared my throat. "I'm not performing at the festival. I would never perform in public for anything." "Then I'm not coming," Connor said stubbornly. Darn it, he knew I wouldn't perform, and that was his way out. "Why won't you play for anyone, Avon?" Zion said. I shrugged. "I don't want people watching me up there. Watching the freak is what I wanted to say." "Why not?" Zion asked. "You acted in a play on stage in front of people." That was different. I was in a silly cactus costume. If you didn't know me, you wouldn't have even known I didn't have arms. Doing stuff with my feet in front of a crowd, performing with my feet. That's just different. I feel like I was in a circus or something. "That's silly," Zion said. "No one would think that of you." But I knew he was wrong. Chapter 26. In most places, spring comes around March or April, or even May. Arizona's whole winter is pretty much like springtime, with a few winter days scattered throughout. I can't say I was sorry not to have trudged through the snow everywhere I went. Things were really coming together for the festival. Dad found a website that had like 100 country western bands for hire listed on it. We had our pick, and they weren't even very expensive. Mom and I spent an entire day cleaning up the old stage in the closed down rodeo arena. That was also where the food trucks would park since we weren't having a rodeo. Connor and I had gone to 2 more support group meetings, and I got the feeling he was actually starting to enjoy them, even though he often gave Dexter the stink eye. I still hadn't found a tarantula despite going out almost every night with Dad. One day I was visiting Spaghetti and I asked Denise what she knew about tarantulas. Do they bother the animals? There aren't any tarantulas around here, she told me as she raked the dirt ground. There aren't? But I thought they were all over the desert. I read all about them, and every book I've read distinctly states that they live in the Sonoran Desert. They should be here, but I guess with the city moving in on us like this, they've gone away. I rubbed Spaghetti's sides with my feet. Yeah, but there's still a good chunk of desert right behind us. I'm always looking for one when I walk out there, but I've never seen one. Denise stopped raking and wiped her brow. I guess there used to be a bunch around here, but they've disappeared a while back. Henry said it was around 2004. I stared at her. They disappeared in 2004? But Henry can't remember anything. Yeah, he said. The last time anyone saw a live tarantula around here was 2004. Denise went back to raking the ground. Who knows? Probably just made it up. I decided to go visit Henry. He was sitting in front of the soda shop in one of the rocking chairs. I stood in front of him and asked, when did the tarantulas disappear? In 2004, he said quickly and matter-of-factly. Why do you think that? Because, he said, and for the first time ever, his eyes looked clear and knowing to me. They left with her. I shivered, and not from the cool breeze. With who? He looked up at me, his eyes once more clouding with confusion. Who? What? Who did the tarantulas leave with? He continued giving me his confused look. You want an ice cream, sweetheart? I sighed. No, thank you. I even visited Madame Myrtle to try to figure out things, but she was clueless about the tarantulas. She said maybe an exterminator came and took care of them in 2004. Ridiculous. We were in the storage building as we could, looking through old pictures and junk. So far, Dad had given us about 15 unlabeled keys to try on the desk, but none of them had worked. This one's a dud, Connor called, pulling a key out of the drawer and tossing it back into a paper bag. I frowned as I kicked a box in one corner of the shed. It was so old and brittle from the heat that it burst wide open, sending a wave of papers onto the floor. It wasn't necessarily the most orderly way to do things, but it was a lot easier than Zion's methods. I sheepishly glanced over at him, and he carefully removed old tape from a box and pulled the top back like the Mona Lisa might be inside. Zion shook his head at me. Avon, he scolded, do you have to make this place look like a tornado ripped through here? She's from Kansas, Connor said as he tried another key. Tornadoes are in her blood. Connor grunted and then barked. Dud. He pulled the key out. I sifted through the papers on the ground with my toes, trying to make out the faded writing. There were a lot of numbers and words like deduction and revenue and net. Whoa, Zion said, causing Connor and me to stop what we were doing and look at him. He had a book in his hand and was pulling something out from between the pages. Whoa, he said again in a whisper. Connor and I walked through the junk to see what Zion was whoaing about. He held up an old black and white photograph for us to see. A photograph of me? With arms? Wearing a turquoise necklace. Taken in 1973. Chapter 27. I showed Mum the picture that evening. She stared at it a long time before whispering, it could be just a coincidence. She didn't look like she believed her own words. She sat down at our little kitchen table without taking her eyes off the picture. She has your face, but it's in black and white. Maybe her hair is a little different color? Don't you think it's strange, though? I said. She nodded. Then she set the picture down. It must be a coincidence. I saw this show once about doppelgangers. What's that? I asked. Sounded dangerous and exciting. Anyway, she went on, there are people who look alike all over the world, like literally identical. But when they were DNA tested, They found out that they weren't related at all, just totally random. That's weird, I said. I guess I found my gobbledinger. She smiled. Doppelganger. I thought for a moment, I wonder if Henry knew this girl, and that's why he kept thinking I'm someone else. She looked from me to the picture and was about to say something when Dad walked in. Mean Bob has officially left the building, he announced. And good riddance. What a relief, Mum said. She got up and handed Dad the picture. I even found this in that storage room. Dad stared at the picture a long time before looking at me. Odd, he said. You found this? In that desk? No, none of those keys worked. We found it stuck in a book, in a box. He didn't say anything more, but I did notice the way he and Mum looked at each other, and their faces weren't very happy.